Okay, it's 7 o'clock evening. Can I ask any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device to mute it to avoid feedback? Can I ask any remote participants to keep their camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak, and ideally not use the camera facility at all, as this can affect the quality of the meeting? Please be advised that this meeting may be recorded and data collected during the recording of this meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. The recording of a meeting may be added to the Council's website. I welcome everybody to this hybrid local plan panel meeting, including any visiting members attending remotely and members of the public. Can I advise you that the following staff are in attendance in the Council chamber or remotely? The Head of Planning Services, the Planning Policy Manager, our Conservation and Design Manager, and Democratic Services. We obviously have the emergency evacuation procedure. Can I take it everybody's familiar with that? There's no members of the public in the gallery, so I think we all know that. Are there any apologies for absence?
No, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, can I ask members if they approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of September 2021 as a correct record? That's agreed. Are there any declarations of interest? There are no indications. I'll advise you that items on the agenda are Part A reports for recommendation to Cabinet. Agenda item 5 is the issues and preferred options Reg 18 consultation. The recommendations are to recommend the attached document to Cabinet for approval for consultation purposes and to endorse the consultation arrangements. And secondly, to give delegated authority to the Head of Planning in consultation with the Cabinet member to make minor amendments to the document prior to consultation. Basically, as you will remember, at the beginning of this year, we were issuing a Reg 19. We were committed to considering the responses to that Reg 19 document. We've listened. We also have some changes to the MPPF, which are important. And this gives us an opportunity to go out with another approach to the local plan. That was all covered in the last meeting. So what we have in front of us today is the proposed Reg 18, and I'll hand over to Jill Peat, who will introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I would like to apologise to the panel for the late circulation of the draft essay and that it's not complete. We had anticipated this would be the case, and we did cover it we did mention it in the covering report, but nevertheless, we appreciate that that is frustrating and less than ideal. And just to focus a bit on the essay, it is an important part of this process, and it is an iterative part of the process in the sense that it informs the local plan and the local plan informs the essay. So we're in a fortunate position that there is already a significant body of work completed on sustainability appraisal, and this is one of the reasons why we've been able to progress with the Reg 18 document that is before you within the timescales. Now, the aim of the appraisal is to inform decision making and consultation responses to the Reg 18 on the question of selecting a preferred option, which, as we know, has been identified as option 3 in the document. It's a technical assessment of all of the options, and it's provided to the panel as a background item for information. The appraisal is able to draw meaningful distinctions under most of the topic headings at this stage, providing a strong indication that the 5 options set out in the Reg 18 document are reasonable options which we can consider more widely at this stage of the plan making process. So the 5 development strategy options have already been subject to SA and the findings published in previous versions. So the final version of this document will accompany the report going to Cabinet on the 27th of October with a recommendation that it's agreed by members for consultation purposes along with the Reg 18 document itself. The Reg 18 document that's before you contains a number of questions under the various topic headings around how the council should progress with its local plan. And this includes a number of options, 5 options for a development strategy, and it includes reference to the preferred option. Okay, so the consultation will run for 4 weeks and end on the 29th of November. We've got a couple of sessions planned with town and parish councils, and we're in the process of arranging some more area-based sessions. As is always the case, we will be notifying all our consultees, those on the database that have engaged with us at the Reg 19 stage earlier in the year. They'll receive an email or a letter as per their chosen preference, and we will also be using social media to get the message out there. Thankfully, this time we'll be able to provide hard copies for inspection at our libraries as well. So the report has 2 recommendations that the attached document is recommended to Cabinet for approval for consultation purposes, and that delegated authority be given to the Head of Planning in consultation with the Cabinet member to make minor amendments to the document prior to consultation. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jill. And can I just say how gratifying it is to see a number of our planning policy staff attending remotely tonight. We don't have to do that, and that is very welcome. Any questions, observations? Come on, Alistair.
With regards to sustainability appraisal, I just had the first glance at it, but I was wondering, when it's considering option 5, that which is the strategic sites, there's a lot of difference within. There are options within that option 5, which means that I just wonder whether there's going to be anything brought out about the almost a different performance of quite different elements within the option 5 being the strategic sites, because it seems to consider 4 sites, quite different sites together, and just whether the final version of the draft of the sustainability appraisal will reflect that big difference between quite big sites that have been lumped together in option 5, as far as I can see.
Jill, you comment on that?
So option 5 is the option that looks at a combination of strategic sites as it did last time. So it's the same approach as last time.
It's just there are different combinations within that option. Is that, have I understood that right from my brief reading of it just now? That so that I just think before people look at the headline number figures, you perhaps need to bear in mind that of which is performing the best of the various options, 1 to 5, that option 5 actually includes different options within it, if I've understood it right.
I suppose all options contain variations within them. They are strategic approaches. They're not specific allocations. Option 5 is the strategic approach of going down the Garden Village route. Effectively, only 3 have been looked at generally. There are 4, I think, that have been submitted. But it is, as with all the other options, a strategic approach rather than specific allocations. So with all the options, you could say, well, that site might go in, that site might go in, and that site might go in. But it's a spatial strategy, and of course they are all in the rural area.
Thank you. But I think it's just worth highlighting that the variation within that one is probably bigger than some of the others, in terms of what might be an outcome there.
I think they do look at a combination, but I can certainly make sure that we can be very clear on that for the next meeting.
Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. I think on the options, I think I can understand what's all being said there, because when you do read through it, it does say that, for instance, option 5 may not perform well in one of them. I can't remember which one it is now. But if there's other smaller sites that come into it and brought in rather than all large sites, it then changes things. And this is what I said last time. I think the options that have been used are exactly the same options as we looked at in the past. And at that time, I said that a mixture of the options would be better. I think at the time it was 2, 3 and 5 we said about. And I think that's what the problem is here. We're putting out options that we used last time just to give a steer to officers. I don't think it was necessarily a case of that's what's going to be put out to the public. And I think we're going to be coming up with problems when we look at this. If you look at the sustainability appraisal, just go on the graph on page 26. The best one that features in majority is option 5. We're saying in the document that option 3 is the best one, and then the SA is saying something different. And I can't work out how we are going to be saying that one option is better when we haven't got the evidence to be backing that up to what this seems like. It would seem that the SA document should have been done before we'd come up with the Reg 18 document. And the fact that this has come through today and is incomplete, and as has been said, it's an important document, I can't see how we can be recommending it to Cabinet when we don't even know what the document is. There's no conclusion in there, and it just doesn't make sense to me. I think with all options, when this goes out to the public, I think we're going to, well, say I think there is going to be problems, and the answers, the consultation responses aren't going to be what people like to hear. If you look at how it's laid out in the Reg 18 document, you see that everybody on the Isle of Sheppey will be saying, oh, let's go for option 5 because it gives less housing in the Isle of Sheppey. And you're going to have everyone saying, oh, Sittingbourne, let's say everyone goes in Faversham. And I don't think there's going to be any clear answer coming back. And if we don't get it right now, it's going to be developers that are going to be making these arguments when it comes up to the examination. So I'm just got a concern that the information that we've got here that's going out isn't very clear, and the results are going to be something that we actually don't want to hear. I think the reason for this is, as I said last time, the timescale that's been given to do this is too quick. It's unrealistic that we're expecting officers to bring forward this information and get it to Cabinet in time. And I think it's already seen that if we don't get it right now, then it's going to come back on us when we get to the examination.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Whiting.
Thank you, Chair. Much obliged as a visiting member. I must agree with everything that Councillor Hunt has said. I would first like to say that I am appalled that this SA has come forward at this late stage before such an important meeting. It is an important document. We knew the meeting was coming forward and we commissioned this report, and we should have commissioned it on the basis that we could have 7 days to read it before we considered it at this meeting tonight, or before the members of the committee considered it tonight. And I think that's an absolute failing. I don't know where that lies, but I really I make no apology for the fact that it lies somewhere, and we should have had this report. Members should have had this report a week ago so that we could properly consider it before tonight. So that's a late submission thing. With regards to the essay though, and I have I've spent a couple of hours before I came in tonight trying to plough through all 28 pages of closely typed print. It does sit on the fence, but I agree with Councillor Hunt on it doesn't sit on the fence on option 5. It actually makes a very good case for option 5. The preferred option from the substantive report, option 3, doesn't address the ACMA issues on the A2. It doesn't address the provision of health and education and transport infrastructure. And it's something that really we should be looking at more closely and allowing people more than 4 weeks to decide this. The consultation period is not in keeping with the council's policy, and it's not in keeping with the council's policy in respect that the council has signed up for a Kent-wide consultation policy. So I think we really do need to consider the length of consultation that is being offered. I'd also like to hear, if I may, Chairman, just one question really. What the officers' views are on the recent announcements by government about the national planning policy framework. And I'll leave that question if I may, but there are some others hanging there in the ether. Thank you.
Okay. Who wants to answer about the MPPF? James, if you can come in on some of the other issues. Do you want to do all of them, or who wants to talk about MPPF? Yeah.
Just my comments on the sustainability appraisal. Just first, it is only a tool. It's not there to determine which is the best option at the end of the day. It might identify certain real concerns with it, even showstoppers as we move forward with this on certain options. But it's not there to say that option's better than another option in that respect. It's sort of a tool you use working with other aspects you're taking into account in terms of which options you want to go forward at a later date. So it's not just a black and white document which assesses those assessments. That's for you to use as a tool to go forward in terms of the way that you want to approach the local plan as it moves forward. I think in terms of that it is unfortunate that the document came to you late. We had short timescales to produce it, but you've had a lot of SA work done already in moving forward with the Reg 19 document. So a lot of the information in there shouldn't be a surprise to you. And indeed, the report we presented to you sort of outlines what's likely to be in the SA, and it shouldn't cause you two problems. And we did check with legal services on this, that they thought we were handling this appropriately, given that background information that you've already previously had. So we don't believe that should be a significant concern to you at the moment, but it's unfortunate that you've not been able to read the document as it's set out to you today. But that will be a final document which will go to Cabinet, and that would have been fully read by everybody at that point in there, the decision-making body. With the MPPF, with regard to local plan drafting, the big issue that came out of that was the government's wish to have a longer time span for looking at the vision for a document. And many local authorities have been fallen foul of that and have had to pull their local plans at the last minute in 1 or 2 places. So, you know, a lot of authorities, including themselves, are just having to sort of pull back a bit and just take that view that you're looking at a 30-year view rather than just the 15-year view you had before. We're also waiting for further advice from the government as to what that actually means as well, because they've not provided the advice to us on how to handle that aspect through the National Planning Policy Guidance yet. So that should be coming through to us shortly to sort of get a better angle on that as we move forward towards a Reg 19 document at a later date. I don't know whether Jill wants to add to that.
Sorry, to add to what James was saying about the sustainability appraisal, it isn't technically needed at this stage, and it is about providing a commentary on each of the options, because you'll know choosing an option involves, you know, a lot more information than just the sustainability appraisal conclusions, and our requirement is to progress with an option that is an appropriate option, not the most appropriate option, and that's quoting directly from the NPPF because of those sort of other issues that help inform the decision. So earlier this week, the PPG was updated, and it includes a couple of paragraphs on that long-term development, that long-term vision. I think the situation that we're moving into is that we have to be more aware of the fact that you don't get a plan period and then those housing numbers disappear. So whilst there is the expectation that local plans will have that 15-year period and that vision will go beyond that, I wonder if we're going to be moving into a brave new world where actually local plans in general just have a much longer time scale. But with anything that comes out in the form of guidance and national policy, you need to give yourself a chance to digest it and percolate it.
In fact, there was a local plan pulled 2 days ago, specifically over the NPPF, wasn't there? And I can't remember which council it was, but I didn't. No, I Medway was differently. Was it Horsham?
Maybe.
Yeah, there's been quite a few lately.
Yeah.
Councillor Whelan.
Thank you, Chair. I know a lot of time's been spent at the moment looking at priorities, so I was keen to see what was being said in the sustainability appraisal on new homes. And on page 27, we've got this section is yet to be completed. Do you know when it is likely to be completed and when it can be compared with the priorities we're looking at the moment?
I think our priorities are pretty well drawn up, haven't they? They're not greatly different from what we've been talking about for the last 2.5 years, but when will we be able to put them in a readable format?
So we're expecting a completed sustainability appraisal towards the end of next week.
Oh, good.
Just for clarity, the housing section is actually on page 18 onwards. The bit that's missing is just a summary of it, just to be clear.
Councillor Hunt.
Thanks. Just talking about the PPG, I'm still generally trying to get my head around why we were doing a Regulation 18. Because on the report we've got the NPPF changes, and we've now got Brexit that's been pushed in there as well, which there was no mention of Brexit at all last time. And we also had the judicial review that's happening in November. That's not mentioned at all there now. And I wonder, are we still saying that we're doing this Reg 18 because just of the changes of the NPPF? And does that mean that the judicial review has gone away now? If we're doing it with the NPPF, the guidance that's come out, I think it's paragraph 22 of the NPPF that we've got the issues with. And the guidance that come out specifically says that where the policy applies, the authority will need to ensure that the vision reflects the long-term nature of their strategy for the plan of those larger scale developments. It's not anticipated that such visions would require evidence in addition to that already produced to support the plan. And it also then goes on and says that it should be dealt with. I can find the part that's there. It is basically just for further clarification. It can be done through the use of a short supplementary statement. There's nothing that says we have to go back to Regulation 18 and do all the work again. And it was mentioned there and last time about Horsham. I've spoken to the leader of Horsham Council and the cabinet member, and they are in a completely different situation to what we are. They were going to Reg 19 and they pulled it because of the changes to the MPPF. But what they are doing is exactly what it's saying in the guidance, and they're dealing with putting together a short supplementary statement to add to their Regulation 19 document so that they can then go out for the consultation on that. They're not going back to Regulation 18. So I cannot work out why we are saying that changes to the MPPF and now Brexit is a reason for going back to Reg 18. And is it because there is other reasons that we should have done this before in the first place?
Now, you will remember, Councillor Hunt, but we have had this discussion at the last local plan panel, and we voted that the local development scheme at Appendix 1 be adopted as a current programme.
We did, but with respect,
please, we'll allow people to finish their sentences. We are here to discuss today what is in the Reg 18. We can't keep going back over previous discussions. You made it clear and it was noted that you were against the timetable set out in the report. That is respected, but you said also that you're not against going back to Regulation 18. So that's what we're doing. We've got to move forward. We can't keep visiting previous discussions.
Yeah, completely. But if I can just go back, because 4 weeks ago it was a very different period where we didn't have any PPG out. We didn't have a government that have suddenly paused the national policy. And if Gove can go and pause national policy, why don't we go and pause local policy? I think we're rushing it still. And a lot has changed in that 4 weeks. And I think we need to just reflect a bit and see if what we're doing is actually the right thing still.
Okay, Councillor Whiting.
Yeah, sorry, it was just a quick thing. I'm not quite sure that we addressed the situation about, as James has just mentioned, he's picking up on James's point, the timing issue. That why we're doing this now when we couldn't do it before, and the administration said it wasn't necessary. And now the administration, and this is a public meeting, so the public deserve to know why, what was said before, that we didn't need to go back to a Reg 18B or Reg 18. And we didn't need to hold a Reg 18B. The decision now has been to go back to that. But I also go back to the question about the sustainability appraisal and other issues. The members of the committee tonight, Chairman, are here to advise the Cabinet on what the Cabinet should do. But as has been referenced, there is a huge lack of information, not just in the SA, but elsewhere. So I would feel as a Cabinet, as a member of this committee, I didn't have sufficient information to feed back to the Cabinet what my view should be, because it simply is not there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As you know, has been explained, the time frame was agreed at the last meeting. This was discussed. The timetable was set. We are doing what the local plan panel recommended at the last meeting. We are meeting that timetable. The issue before us tonight is the document, the Reg 18, any comments and observations on it, and whether or not we think it is suitable for going ahead with the consultation. I understand and hear what you say, but we had that discussion last time. And if I allow it to go on tonight, I have a feeling we'll probably have it again next time. But we agreed a timetable. We're sticking to that timetable. We brought a Reg 18 before the panel for their consideration. It is what is in this Reg 18 that people need to be asking about and asking clarity, questions, proposals and comments, really. Councillor Bonney.
Cheers, thank you. I'm a bit surprised by members of the opposition seeming to want to slow down the process. I mean, we have a duty to our local population to make sure we've got a valid local plan, which we currently have, and we have a duty to provide a new local plan. If we don't, we leave ourselves extremely vulnerable and exposed, and I wonder if that's what their end game is. Maybe their sponsors might like to tell us that. Well, no, but there is a fact to be debated on that, but I'll leave that aside. Not tonight, no. I think what is before us is reasonable. Government keeps changing the goalposts as per usual. Planning is always a moving feast. I think we're in a position where we have to go out and reconsult on this. It's quite a simple document to read. It's fairly easy to go through. It's regrettable that we haven't got the conclusions there, but we've got the main body, so there should be absolutely no surprises about what the SA comes out with. We've got an SA for the Reg 19. Why we're trying to reinvent the wheel, quite honestly. Keep things simple and moving.
Councillor Hunt. On document.
Just a quick response to what's said there. I'm not trying to slow it down at all. I'm actually trying to speed it up. What I'm saying is if we don't need to go back to Reg 18, then we just do the work that's needed, that's the PPG is saying, and we go to the Reg 19 again with the additional document to deal with the MPPF, unless there's other reasons that we need the Reg 18.
Well, yes, we could go up to another Reg 19, but there were issues that were raised in the last Reg 19. Some comments that were made, some points that were made, but I do want to take on board. Just going out with another Reg 19 was an option. It's not the option that the local plan panel have supported. And we have to respond to the long-term changes that are coming through as a result of COVID. We do need to respond to, I didn't use the word Brexit, so I'm not going to include that. But there is more knowledge, more information coming out about long COVID. This plan will have to be reviewed again before 2027, and the chances are there are going to be significant changes in the employment basis, in our the way that people work, the way that people move, and this will have a huge impact on review that will have to be done as soon as this one's been adopted. So, as Councillor Bonney said, we are constantly in a moving situation. The fact that we've got to look at a longer period of time and polish the crystal ball even clearer when we know that it's going to change is just one of those things we've got to live with. We know that next year our current local plan expires in April, May of next year. Leaving things to go on just leaves a longer period of time when we're vulnerable. We need to show that we're moving forward. Why have we gone back to a Reg 18? Because we want to give people the options and discussion on the way we go ahead. We could have done that earlier this year. We were in a position that the numbers changed, government target changed. We might have been in a 3-month window where we could have got in under the old numbers. The government pulled that back. They cancelled the mutant algorithm, but we already had a Reg 19 in place. What on earth would have been the point in not going ahead with that? It was a good, sound document. It was one that could well have gone through and been adopted. There would have been absolutely no reason to not do that as a Reg 19. The other benefits of going out for a Reg 19 are that statutory consultants have to respond, and they have to give responses that they're going to stick by, because they are potentially going to be used as the evidence at the inspection. So we got the responses from the statutory consultees, very useful as well. We might not have got that if we had gone out for Reg 18B. We might have just got a high level gloss over type response. What we got was the detailed responses that we wanted, and that combined with Reg 18 at this point, I think means that we will go forward in the early part of next year with an even stronger Reg 19, but will be able to be adapt and respond to the COVID issues that are coming out and the other reasons, you know, that people raised in the consultation. I know it's odd sometimes, but when a council says it's going out to consultation and we'll listen to the responses, but it does so. But, you know, we did. Councillor Whiting.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, again. And I do appreciate the opportunity to speak again. The visiting member. I think you're absolutely right. When you go out to consultation, the council should listen to those consultation responses and act accordingly. And to that extent, I think that you are. My concern about what is being proposed in the Reg 18 consultation is it doesn't show how you are going to provide the educational places that are needed. It does not show how you're going to provide the transport infrastructure that is needed. And it does not show how you're going to provide the health infrastructure that is needed and how all those things are going to be provided for and where they're going to be built. It simply doesn't show that. So to my view, it still falls short. Now, there's some work to be done before we go out, but to go out in a few weeks' time on consultation when those answers aren't in place, I think would leave this council in danger of failing the inspector and in danger of failing the public. Thank you.
Okay, Jill, I'm going to hand over to you. I mean, this is a Reg 18, not a Reg 19. The requirement of that sort of detail, I think, shouldn't be in a Reg 18 because we're consulting, but it's getting that information so that the next Reg 19 does exactly what you've said. But Jill?
Thank you. Yes, just to add to that, that the Reg 19 is much broader, much higher level than that, and we're not required to go into that level of detail. And you'll remember from the recent Reg 19 that we did go into a lot of the detail with the information that we had from those key infrastructure providers at the time. We work very closely with them to make sure that our information is robust and as up to date as possible. We work very closely with KCC on education provision, similarly with the CCG. You know, it is a constantly moving feast. It's not appropriate to include that level of detail at a Reg 18 because there's still a lot of factors that come into play when we do nail that down, like where the sites are actually going to be completely. And that detail will follow, and we continue to work on that in the background as we're required to do and as is appropriate.
I'm grateful for the response, Chairman. It's just a very quick comeback. I mean, if we're expecting the public to, who are the consultees, to come back with meaningful responses, then regardless of what the law says we have to do, shouldn't, and giving the public the opportunity to discuss at this early stage what the council is proposing, and to not have a proposal at all in respect of that infrastructure, be it transport, health, or education, doesn't allow them the opportunity to respond in a meaningful way. And I just think that perhaps we should be going beyond what the law requires and doing what actually the public expect.
Okay, I mean, you heard the explanation. I appreciate what you're saying. I think there is a danger here of clouding the purpose of a Reg 18 which leads to a Reg 19. This is about the spatial strategy. The detail isn't coverable in this simply because it's not that detailed a type of strategy consultation. It is more high level. And I'm at 62 pages. This is one of the largest Reg 18 documents I've seen. There are Reg 18 documents that are 16 pages long, and they've been issued within Kent. This is, of course, this is on the back of a very well-informed public who have been able to engage with the previous Reg 19. We're not going to ignore the responses they made to that Reg 19 going forward. Yes, we've borne them in mind now. They won't be forgotten in the future either. It's just not the document for that type of detail, really. And as Jill said, yeah, that's
Chairman,
not the approach.
If I ask one question, apologies. You just said that the responses previously won't be forgotten. Does that mean that those who responded previously won't have to respond again to this new one, or will they have to resubmit their responses to the new Reg 18?
Well, if they were about education, if it would depend if they are appropriate to this document. But when the stuff is sent to the inspector at the examination in public, I believe I'm right in saying that everything that has been put forward that has been submitted is sent forward.
Thanks. So technically the requirement is to provide a summary of the main issues raised at the Reg 19. And we know that what we had as a Reg 19 earlier this year is unlikely to be what we submit. So there will be an additional Reg 19 and the comments raised will be summarised and provided to the inspectorate. So we're kind of getting into splitting hairs to a degree about what happens to the Reg 19 responses from this year. The fact is that that was an incredibly valuable exercise in terms of the information it gave us through the consultation responses. And as officers, we've responded to that in the drafting of the Reg 18 document, and that will carry on forward as we draft the new Reg 19 document. And similarly, the consultation responses from this Reg 18 document will also feed in and shape what that Reg 19 looks like. And we will evidence that by preparing a report that sets out what these main issues have been and how we've considered them.
I'm very grateful, Chairman, to Jill's explanation, but you'll see where I'm coming from with the tenement area of opportunity, for example. There has been a massive backlash against that within my constituents, and I didn't want to make it local, I didn't want to make it specific tonight, but I need to advise them whether they need to resubmit their objections or whether they can simply rely on the council including their objections in whatever response that they make to the inspector.
We don't know what will be in the next Reg 19, so they would have to respond to that Reg 19 because it would be a response to what is in that document. The Reg 18 consultation, they are, perfectly able to comment on what has gone before. We're not saying that they can't do that. If they think that means that there's a better strategy, spatial strategy that they prefer, that can be said. But you consult on what you've got in the document. What we'll be putting out in the next Reg 19 will not be the same as the last Reg 19. Bits of it will be similar, bits of it won't be. But yes, what is ever in the Reg 19 that's to come, they would have to comment on again. You can't say an old document carries forward because it would undermine what they've said.
I appreciate your clarification, Chairman. So they need to respond to the Reg 18, they need subsequent Reg 18B, and then again the Reg 19. And they need to do that separately to their previous responses.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more comments, can we have I'll move recommendations 1 and 2. Another seconder. Thank you, Councillor Gould. All those in favour, please show. And those against? And abstentions? That was 1 abstention. Agenda item 6, which is the Milstead Conservation Area Review. I believe this is the first of the reviews that have come forward, paid for, commissioned by an area committee. So, Simon, can I hand over to you?
Thank you, Chairman. This is the first of 3 conservation area appraisals commissioned by the Western Area Committee, the other 2 being Tunstall and Rodmersham, which are well in progression. This one's been out to public consultation, had very positive response to that. What we're looking for this evening is just to confirm or note of the public consultation draft, and to look for your support to recommend the changes that we've taken on board to the appraisal document, and to recommend those to cabinet. It's one of the relatively early conservation areas, designated in 1973, but it's not been subject, as far as I can find in our records, to any review since that time. So it's arguably well overdue. It's a very good piece of work that was carried out by the consultant. It's a very sound little conservation area, and part of the reason, obviously, we've brought this piece of work forward was to help inform our decision making on the Highstead Park proposals that have come forward. This little conservation area is obviously south of the motorway. I think it's going to be relatively unaffected by the proposals. The other 2 probably more so, but it was important to have a look to see, and obviously the fact that it's so overdue as well. It's a welcome piece of work. It's part of a wider range of conservation area review work we're doing at the moment, and that was agreed in relation to the heritage strategy, which was adopted last year. This so this wasn't in the programme for that, but because of the concerns over Highstead Park and the effects that could have, it was a piece of work that's brought forward. So the proposal before you is to redesignate conservation area and amend the boundaries as set out in the report. There are 7 boundary changes, 5 of them effectively extensions and 2 are just little adjustments. And you would have picked up from the report that there was 1 further little tweak proposed as a sort of amendment to the recommendations made by the consultant. That was to include a shore, which is a sort of an area of woodland strip along the field boundary, which you felt was important to include. So none of the proposed boundary changes have been sort of challenged or questioned through the public consultation. We've incorporated the suggestion to include the shore within the document you've got before you.